Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative Headline News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, Moody's Investors Service withdrew its credit ratings from the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the Cacas media use that as a headline. I use it as well because it's the shortest way. But at least I'm giving you the details from the very beginning of my video. The Cacas media, when they had the headline on Facebook, they didn't even put the details that it's because of a decision made by the government. And I'm going to tell you what it is now. Following the company's decision, remember, state-owned, to stop participating in the rating process due to concerns over methodology. It's not that Moody's just said, but we're going to withdraw this rating to give you even give you a worse rating, No. They withdrew it because we no longer have any dealings with them. NGC terminated a 21-year relationship, stating the ratings did not accurately reflect its financial strength and shifted to other agencies, including S&P Global, CARICRIS, and the Fitch rating. So it's not like we are just getting rid of these organizations or bodies that could be able to give us credit ratings. We've just gotten rid of Moody's. While NGC maintains strong profits, critics and analysts note that reducing participation with major rating agencies could impact transparency and investor confidence during a period of low domestic natural gas supply. No, leaving an organization that continues to give wrong ratings is what will cause a negative impact on our country, my dear, smart, intelligent P&M analysts. That is what was causing people to be afraid to invest in our country, because it was shining a bad and incorrect light on our nation's economy. Smarties. And they are well-intelligent economists with all kind of degrees and diplomas. But no, you see, P&M always on their mind. They always think with a P&M mind. My response: the government made the right decision to stop depending on Moody's, right? They're always in a mood to do nonsense, to provide our country with any ratings, because their assessments appear to be incorrect and probably even politically motivated, in my opinion. I'm not saying that they gave P&M good ratings all the time, but what I'm saying is, to me, it seems a bit more strange now. Do tribal P&M patriots really believe that Ghana Yam and the Great Dragon would have saved our nation from a complete economic collapse? Because they were blaming, in the comment section, they were blaming the UNC for this situation with Moody's, Yes, people are with the downgrade and so forth, Even though the reality is the UNC inherited an economy that was collapsing. And they also inherited a lawless nation. A nation that wasn't being governed properly and managed properly. So right now, the UNC is still in the process of attempting to stabilize the economy and secure our nation. And 1 year is insufficient, people. You are judging. You all are overdoing it by judging the government wrongfully. You cannot fix 9.5 years of mess in 1 year. I went on to ask, when did our forex shortage crisis begin? And which political party is to be blamed for the mismanagement of our economy? P&M patriots, be honest. How long now we have been facing a forex shortage, especially after your precious Rowley decided to close down Petrotrade after promising that he wouldn't do so? How long every Christmas sales were declining, even with the big shot businesses, even with the 1% businesses, they were complaining that sales were slow. Sales were slow for years upon years now. It has been getting worse each year. But what? You expected what? UNC to come into power and fix everything one time? Whether the decision was in fact strategic or made due to declining performance, the fact remains that UNC was left with an almost impossible task of fixing all of P&M's mess while also attempting to revive TNT's economy. This will take time, people. Time. But P&M don't care about that. P&M patriots don't care about that. All they want is to get back the government in office to be able to gladly and willingly hold strain again. Gladly tighten their belts. Because they will do it for the P&M. They just wouldn't do it for the UNC. So this will take time, but trainees are only willing to hold strain when their precious PNM, Mighty Morphin Ghanaian Bicycle Coal Pot, no harm, no macaroni pie PNM party is in office. The Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Ravi Ratiram, announced during a Senate debate on the Victims' Rights Bill 2026 that agricultural workers will soon receive mandatory status updates regarding their reported criminal cases. This procedural change specifically targets predial larceny, a widespread issue involving the theft of livestock, crops, and farm equipment that damages local food security. Previously, farmers expressed deep frustration with law enforcement because the predial larceny squad rarely provided follow-up details after a crime report was filed. By embedding these reporting mandates directly into investigative workflows, the new bill ensures that victims are no longer left in the dark and can actively access essential state legal guidance and support services. But if you know the PNM Patriots have an issue with this too, with this law, I'm telling you, something with the PNM Patriots, they're always defending the criminals instead of the victims.
This is one of the main reasons farmers have left the agricultural sector, because after reporting a crime, there is no follow-up, no updates. Silence breeds frustration. Silence breeds distrust. Victims deserve communication, they deserve transparency, they deserve to know that their case matters.
Agriculture Minister Ravi Ratiram says farmers across Trinidad and Tobago have been suffering in silence for years as predial larceny continues to devastate livelihoods, erode confidence, and threaten national food security. Speaking during the debate on the Victims' Rights Bill 2026 in the Senate, the minister said the proposed legislation is intended to ensure that all victims, including farmers, are treated with dignity, compassion, and respect. He also assured that the government is working to reduce incidents of predial larceny, which cost the Caribbean an estimated $321 million annually.
When we entered into office, Mr. President, there was only one operational vehicle in the predial larceny squad. Today, there are 9. This government, Mr. President, has moved to strengthen operational capacity, repair vehicles, acquire additional resources, and improve responsiveness.
During his contribution, Minister of Defense Wayne Sturge said victims are often treated as nuisances when seeking updates from law enforcement.
I was once seen as a nuisance when my car was stolen and they apprehended the chap, I think 2 days later. And I didn't even know when the case was coming up for trial. You know what eventually happened? It was dismissed for non-attendance of the virtual complainant. That's me.
He urged the opposition to support the legislation, noting that it introduces measures to hold officers accountable. The Victim Rights Bill 2026 aims to ensure victims are properly treated throughout the investigative process while improving access to the support services for their recovery. Daniel John, TTT News.
Trinidad and Tobago weather report Sunday 17 May 2026. Trinidad and Tobago will experience hot, hazy, and breezy conditions with a high temperature of 32 degrees Celsius and a low of 26 degrees Celsius. A yellow level high wind alert remains in effect across both islands until 2 p.m., bringing intermittent wind gusts that could exceed 55 km per hour, especially near any passing showers. A moderate concentration of Saharan dust is present in the atmosphere, so individuals sensitive to air quality changes should take necessary precautions. Wind will average 08 to 40 km per hour coming from the NE to ESE. Sudden gusts over 55 km per hour are highly possible before 2 p.m., particularly in eastern districts and elevated areas. Seas will remain moderate with open water waves hitting 2.0 meters to 2.5 meters. Sheltered areas will stay near 1.0 meters but can become occasionally choppy due to wind gusts. Small craft and marine operators must exercise caution. The heat index is expected to peak around 35 degrees Celsius, making the day feel significantly hotter than the actual thermometer reading. Sunrise is at 5:39 a.m. and sunset will occur at 6:18 p.m.
International news now, and we're starting off with something a bit different, a little strange, a little weird. A replica of Kit from Knight Rider, a TV show that I grew up looking at. I loved it as a child growing up in the 80s. So the replica of Kit somehow got hit with a speeding ticket in Brooklyn, despite sitting inside an Illinois museum for years. The Volo Museum says its black Pontiac Trans Am replica has remained on display, but NYC still mailed the museum a ticket, claiming the car went 36 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone in April. Unless somebody really took the car for a drive in New York. Anyhow, the museum has now requested a hearing to fight the citation. Woo! New York and over here. You know, New York and a whole different kind of category right now nowadays, especially because of the Democrats. So most likely that never took place. Something with the use of the cameras or whatsoever, they end up identifying the wrong car. It probably did have a car speeding in that district, but that had nothing to do with the one that was in the museum. The New York Times reports that the United States has arrested Mohammed Bakir Sayed Dawood al-Sadi, a senior commander in the Iraqi Hezbollah Brigade's terrorist group, and filed terrorism charges against him. Well done. He's accused of planning at least 18 attacks in Europe, the United States, and Canada since late February, allegedly in retaliation for U.S. and Israeli strikes against Iran. According to the indictment, al-Sadi planned to kill American and Jewish civilians in Los Angeles and New York, and had already begun planning an attack on a synagogue in New York City. So thankfully, the authorities prevented a terrorist attack from taking place. The indictment further states that as part of his role in the organization, he personally knew Qasem Soleimani, the commander of the IRGC Quds Force, who was eliminated in January 2020. He is expected to appear today before a federal court in Manhattan, although it has not yet been reported how, when, or where he was arrested. I hope he spends the rest of his life in prison. Don't even send him back to whatever country probably originally came from, you know. Let him spend the rest of his life in a U.S. prison.
Bible quote of the day. Matthew 7:9-12 NIV. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you, then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's headline news. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe, most of all. In Jesus' name.